Shalom, Most High Christ bless. Good morning, Officer Kazdiel with IUIC Greenville. We got a pretty decent class today, I would say so myself. Gonna go over a bit of the history in regards to our forefathers and foremothers and the mindset that they've had in regards to war. All right. We have never been a people in our righteousness. We have never been a people that did not rely on God and our faith and keeping the commandments when in the midst of war or battle. All right. We've always relied on God for our victories and our successes. And we're going to touch on a couple of those things today. We're going to start with Romans chapter 15 and verse 4. All right. Romans chapter 15, verse 4. Continue.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning.
So the scriptures tell us that the things that were written aforetime were written for our learning. Right. So when we go here and there throughout the scriptures, reading the histories, putting ourselves in those scenarios, those things are written for our learning. OK, if we read that our faith has been a large part of the victories and the successes that we've had in battle, what would make us think that would change? All right. The scripture says that those things were written for our learning. Read.
That we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope.
Right. That we may have hope through those scriptures that we're going to read. OK, I know a lot of times war gets scary. Brothers and sisters may fear the pestilence. They may fear the war that's coming, the persecution that's coming, the insurrection against the children of Israel that is prophesied to come. However, the scriptures that we read and the history that we go over in regards to how our forefathers dealt with these same things will help us endure to the end. All right. So let's move on to the book of Joel chapter 2. Joel chapter 2. This is what we would consider our saving grace when it comes to the other nations coming against us throughout history and in the future. All right. I'm a little slow on the draw today. All right.
What verse do you want?
Verse 27.
Joel chapter 2 and verse 27.
Mm-hmm.
And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel.
The scripture says that ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. Who's in the midst of Israel? Read.
And that I am the Lord your God and none else.
So the Most High God is in the midst of Israel and none else. He's our God and none else. Read on.
And my people shall never be ashamed.
Why? Because salvation is for us. Get Romans real quick. Romans chapter 9. It says that God is in the midst of Israel and none else. None else. Romans chapter 9, verse 4.
The book of Romans chapter 9 and verse 4. Mm-hmm. Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption.
So to the Israelites pertain the adoption, right? Christ dying on the cross belongs to us. That happened for us. That happened for the children of Israel. Why? For the remission of our sins. Read.
And the glory and the covenants.
The glory, the kingdom of heaven is for us. It belongs to us. When you read Revelation 21, you read who's on the 12 gates. You read those names. It's not all nations. It's the children of Israel. It says, and the glory and the read.
And the covenants.
The covenants, the old covenant and the new covenant, right? We are under the new covenant. Both covenants were for the children of Israel. Read.
And the giving of the law.
And the giving of the law. All of this is for Israel. Read on.
And the service of God.
And the service of God. The service of God is for us. Right? So go back to Joel chapter 2, verse 27 and read that again.
This is the book of Joel, chapter 2 and verse 27. Mm-hmm. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, mm-hmm. and that I am the Lord your God.
So God is in the midst of Israel, and he's our God, read.
And none else.
And none else. And that should make you feel real good on the inside. Okay? Because again, war, pestilence, famine, persecution, these things put fear in us, right? But we should have solace in knowing that the Most High God is the one who is defending us, right? Get Psalms chapter 3, verse 3. We're going to come back to that scripture too, but I want to read it I want to read it now. Psalms chapter 3 and verse 3.
The book of Psalms, chapter 3 and verse 3. But thou, O Lord, are a shield for me.
God said that he is a shield unto us. He's a shield for us. What does a shield do? It protects you. All right? When arrows are coming, you throw that shield up. How many of y'all seen 300? Right? The what's it called? The black sky? I think that's what they called it. Where the arrows were coming nonstop. It was just a big old cloud of arrows. And all of the 300 held up their shields, right? The shield was to protect them, right? Minimize casualties. Read that again.
But thou, O Lord, are a shield for me.
So God is a shield for us, read.
My glory and the lifter up of mine head.
So this is telling us that the Most High God is from where our protection comes. Okay, the Most High God is from where our victory comes. The Most High God is where our success comes. Let's tap into some of this history. We're going to start in Genesis with the forefather Abraham. All right. And we're going to read how he acted in war or in battle and who he gave praises to and relied upon. Genesis chapter 14 and started 1. I think we're going to read the whole thing.
The book of Genesis, chapter 14 and verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amphraphel, the king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Barak, king of Sodom, and with Birsha, king of Gomorrah, and Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar.
Right. So the 4 Mesopotamian kings came in war against these 5 nations, neighboring nations that were occupying the same territory. All right. Read on.
All these were joined together in the Vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea.
Right. Or the Dead Sea. Read.
12 years they served Chedorlaomer, which is in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth, and Karnaim, and the Zuzims, and Ham, and Emims, and Shaveh, Kirathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness.
So they made war with these nations, right? And they started to overcome. Read.
And they returned and came to En-Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar.
Right. So these Mesopotamian kings was winning. Read.
And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the Vale of Siddim.
Right. So now Sodom and Gomorrah and those other neighboring countries were also involved in the war. Read.
With Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amphraphel, the king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elazar, 4 kings with 5. And the Vale of Siddim was full of slime pits.
So the Vale of Siddim was full of slime pits. This is terrain. Like it's like these big pits of water, mud. It's slime pit. Like it's what you hear. Read.
And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain.
Right. So some got put to death and some got away. Right. Read.
And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed.
So typically in war, when the victor claims his victory, the spoils of that land or that nation or that people are taken, right? And whether it be gold, silver, raiment, houses, these things are taken and belong and become the property of the victors, right? Along with this is the people. The people typically become captives who were conquered. All right. So it says that they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed, because Lot was a citizen of Sodom. So he was he didn't die, he was a casualty of war here because he lived there, he was taken captive. Read on.
And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre.
Abram the Hebrew is Abraham. Okay. I'm gonna call him Abraham. His name wasn't changed in the passages we're gonna read. But when I say Abraham, I'm talking about Abram. Read.
And told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram.
Right, meaning they were on Abram's side. They was on Abraham's side. Read.
And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants.
So he armed his trained servants. Right? What does this tell you? This tells you that our forefathers prepared for war, right? Physically, mentally, spiritually, our forefathers prepared for war. He armed up his trained men. Read.
Born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan.
318, not a lot. That's not a lot. And you're going to see that this is kind of a motif in how the Most High God operates when it comes to war. And when it comes to those fit for battle. Read.
And he divided himself against them, and he and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus.
So Abraham went and got it back in blood. That's what happened. He went and got it back in blood. It said he went and smote them. Read that part again.
By night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus.
So it says he went by night and smote them. This is also showing you that there are military tactics that are still used today that our forefathers were using as well. Right? Read on.
And he brought back all the goods.
Right, like I said, he got it back in blood. He brought back all of the goods. Read.
And also brought again his brother Lot.
And he brought again his brother Lot.
And his goods. And the women also. And the people.
So he went and he rescued all of the people along with his nephew. Read on.
And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer.
So the king of Sodom is going to meet Abraham to do what? To thank him, right? Read.
And of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shavah, which is the king's dale.
Read.
And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God.
So Melchizedek, the priest of the Most High God, brought bread and wine. Read.
And he blessed him.
And he blessed Abram. He blessed Abraham. Read.
And said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth.
So I want y'all to pay attention to something. It said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God. What does that mean? That means that Abraham was a servant of the Lord, first and foremost. Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. Read.
And blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thine enemies into thine hand.
That's what you need to pay attention to. It says, and blessed be the Most High God, which have delivered thine enemies into thy hand. It wasn't by Abraham's might alone. Yeah, he had men that were trained up in his house, fit for battle, ready for war, that he was able to arm. But it says that the Lord delivered them into his hand. Read.
And he gave him tithes of all.
Read.
And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. So
the king of Sodom said, give me the people, and you can keep all of the spoils. You can keep everything. You can keep the houses. You can keep the gold. You can keep the clothes. You can keep everything. Read.
And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessors of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine.
So Abraham said, I'm not taking nothing. I vowed to the Lord that I would not take anything to myself. Why did he do that? Read.
Lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich.
So he did that because he didn't want nobody to say, look, I made Abraham rich. Look at all of these things that he got. He helped me in battle, and I clothed him. I gave him money. I gave him houses. I gave him all of this. Abraham said, I don't want any of that. He didn't claim any glory in this victory. Read.
Save only that which the young men have eaten, and a portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion.
Right. So the people that came and helped him defeat these nations in battle and get his nephew back and get the people back, he said, just take care of them. Make sure they eat. Make sure they get their portion. I'm good. I don't need nothing. Right? Read.
Chapter 15, verse 1.
That's what I want.
After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram. I am thy shield.
So this is the word of the Lord coming to Abraham saying, fear not, I am thy shield. Read.
And thy exceeding great reward.
And thy exceeding great reward. Right? So the Most High God is the one that received the glory for defeating these enemies in war. Right? These men were trained. They knew what they was doing. At the end of the day, that didn't matter. What mattered was Abraham's service to God, which led the Most High to defending him and allowing him to get Lot back and the people and the goods. All right. Let's move forward to go back to Psalms. I want to read that part again because the Lord said, I'm not shield and not reward. Let's read that part again in Psalms.
The book of Psalms, chapter 3 and verse 3. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me.
So that never changed. He was a shield for our forefather Abraham. He's a shield for us today. Right? This is David speaking. Read it again.
But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of mine head.
The Most High God is our glory. We don't get no glory from winning these battles. The Most High God gets the glory. He's our glory. To be able to say I'm a servant of the Lord, that's my glory. That's our glory. All right. Now let's move on. Let's go to Exodus chapter 17. We're going to read about Moses. We are going to read about Moses. Exodus 17, you start at verse 8.
The book of Exodus, chapter 17 and verse 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim.
So Amalek came and fought against the children of Israel. Read.
And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men and go out and fight with Amalek.
So Moses commissioned Joshua to go find men. The same way that Abraham went and grabbed men that were fit for battle, Moses told Joshua to go find men who could go to war against the Amalekites. Read.
Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill.
Right. So what do you think they're doing? They going to prepare to petition unto the Lord to deliver the enemies into their hand. Moses said, I'm going to go up and I'm going to raise the rod of God. I want you to read that part again.
And Moses, this is verse 9.
Yeah, verse 9.
And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose us out men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the...
So Moses, obviously he just delivered the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, right? So the people and Moses know the power of God, right? So Moses, when Amalek came against the children of Israel, he said, I'm going to go up and I'm going to raise my the rod of God in my hand on top of the hill. Read that.
Verse 10.
No, read that bottom part of 9.
Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill.
Read.
And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed.
So when Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. I want y'all to really put yourself here. All right. When you raise up your hand to something, you are relying and asking for his help. All right. When you reach up, you rely. You are relying on this source. You're relying on a source. That's what's happening here with Moses. It says he lifted up his hand and Israel prevailed. Read.
And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed.
And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. What does that tell us? That tells us that when we continue to rely on God and we continue to put our faith in the Most High, we overcome. We prevail. We win. We succeed. Right? We are victorious. All of those good words. But when we let down our hands, when we don't rely on the Most High God, or when we fail, our faith weakens, we lose. All right? The nations overcome us. Hold this. The other nations know this. Get Judas chapter 5. I don't think I was going to read this, but Judas chapter 5, because the nations know this as well.
Oh, want to start at verse 20?
Yes, sir.
The book of Judith, chapter 5 and verse 20. Now, therefore, my Lord and governor, if there be any error in this people.
So it says, my Lord and governor, if there be any error in this people is talking about the children of Israel, right? So the other nations know there's something different about these people, right? Read.
And they sin against their God.
So if these people, meaning the children of Israel, sin against the Most High God, read.
Let us consider that this shall be their ruin.
It said, let us consider that this is going to be their ruin. We want to overcome them. Just make sure that they sin against their God. They don't put no faith in their God. They don't put no reliance in their God. They're not thinking about their God. They're not thinking about their laws, their commandments, their statutes. That's how we're going to overcome them. Read that part again.
Let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them.
And let us go up, and we shall overcome him. This is what was being symbolized here in Exodus. Go back. Moses lift up his arms, we winning. He drop him, he get a little weary, a little faint, we start losing. Ain't that how it happens? We got faith. You know what? We put everything into the hands of the Most High God. We let it go. What they say, let go and let God. Right? We do that, and then the Most High starts to give us solutions. He starts to deliver us from our situations. He starts to protect us. We might have to go through a little bit of rough patch. Might have to go through something, feel a little something. But at the end of the day, we end up victorious in the eyes of the Most High God. Right? But when our faith starts failing and we start backsliding, now we don't go to the Sabbath no more. It's too taxing. My body hurt. Making excuse after excuse, and our faith starts to wane, then the Lord is no longer on our side. All right. Read that again in Exodus.
The book of Exodus, chapter 17 and verse 11. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed.
Read.
But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on one side and the other on the other side.
So his arms were getting weary. They were getting weak. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ever been in school and they made you hold your books out to punish you? Right? That thing started to get, even when you just hold them out like this, sitting on doing little wall squats and things like that. That starts to wear on your flesh, your body, right? So this is what's happening here. Moses is getting weary. I'm trying to paint the picture so that y'all can put yourself in this situation, right? Moses' hands, his arms were getting weary, but Aaron and Hur lifted up his arms. That's where that term comes from. Lift up your brother's arms, lift up each other's arms. That comes from this, right? It means to assist them. They got us. They was assisting Moses. So what? So we could prevail in this war. Read.
And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun.
Right. So they held up his hand, all his arms, all the way up to the sun went down. Read on.
And Joshua discomfited Amalek.
So discomfited means overthrow. So Joshua won. Him and the army that he picked, that he saw fit for battle, they defeated Amalek. Read.
And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword.
Read.
And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under the heaven.
The Most High God said, I will utterly put out the remembrance. Moses wasn't putting out the remembrance. Joshua wasn't putting out the remembrance of Amalek. The Most High God was going to do that. That's his vow. Read.
And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nisi. For he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation.
It says, because the Lord has sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. That's God's war. That's why when you read Psalms 80, go read that. Get that, Psalms 83.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 83. You want verse?
Get verse 2.
Verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult.
Stress down.
For thine enemies make a tumult.
The scripture says, for lo, thine enemies make a tumult. That's why the Most High God said he will have a war with Amalek from generation to generation. This is his war. These are God's enemies. They hate us because he chose us. But what we going to do about that? And what they going to do about it? Right? But God said that these are his enemies. So when we are victorious in battle, the Lord is the one who gets the glory, who gets the victory. All right. Let's move on to our next historical account. We're going to read Joshua 6. Joshua 6. Joshua was putting in work, man. Joshua was putting in work.
Verse 1.
Start at verse 1.
The book of Joshua, chapter 6.
We're going to do a lot of reading today, y'all. A lot of reading. Read.
Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, and none came in. And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho.
So the Most High God said, Jericho is y'all's. Read verse 1 again. I want y'all to mentally picture what Jericho was physically, how it stood as a city. Read.
Joshua chapter 6, verse 1. Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel.
So it was straitly shut up because of us. You couldn't get in. You couldn't get out of Jericho. Jericho was very difficult to get in. Read.
None went out and none came in.
That thing was sealed, locked, on lock. Read.
And the Lord said unto Joshua, see, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor.
God said, I'm giving you Jericho. You're going to have Jericho and the king and the mighty men of valor. It's yours. Go take it. Right? This is an impenetrable city. But God said, it's reserved for you. Read on.
And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days.
So the commandment was to go around the city one time for 6 days, right? Read.
And the 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times.
Read.
And the priests shall blow with the trumpets.
So we're reading instruction. God, these are the instructions that God is giving Joshua and the priests to do what? To overthrow this city. Which shows you again that it's not by our own might. It's of the Lord. The Lord says, this is what I need you to do. Your victory is contingent upon you doing what I'm asking you to do. Read.
And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great voice, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, and said unto them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram horns before the ark of the Lord.
So this is Joshua going and telling the people, bidding them to do what God commanded. Read.
And he said unto the people, pass on and compass the city, and let him that is armed pass on before the ark of the Lord.
Read.
And it came to pass, when Joshua had spoken unto the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns passed on before the Lord, and blew with the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them.
Read.
And the armed men went before the priests that blew with the trumpets. And the reward came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, Ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of thy mouth until the day I bid you to shout. Then ye shall shout.
Right. So this is the straight order. This is what he said. He said, don't make a sound, a peep. But when it's time to shout, we're going to shout. Read.
So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about it once.
I want to throw this out there. So when we out at camp and we doing, this is why it's important to be in the spirit and be in one mind with the men out at camp and at war. When we yell Joshua 6, it's a spiritual thing behind that. It's a spiritual thing behind that. When we all in unison, dealing with whatever spirits is out there, there's a spirit behind that. The spirit of victory is behind that thing. All right, read.
So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about it once. And they came into the camp and lodged in the camp.
Read.
And Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually, and blew with the trumpets. And the armed men went before them. But the reward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And the second day they compassed the city once and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days.
Right. So as you see, they're doing the things that Joshua told them to do by the commandment of God. Read.
And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. And it came to pass that at the 7th time, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city.
There you go. Shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. The Lord hath given you the city. It's not because they marched around it and they shouted of their own will. It's because God gave them the city contingent upon them doing what he asked. This is how you going to take it. Read.
And the city shall be accursed, even it, and all that are therein, to the Lord. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent.
Read.
And ye in any wise keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed. When ye take up the accursed thing and make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it.
Right. Read. This is going into spoils. Read.
But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord.
So these things we were good to take in this battle, because typically we don't take nothing. But these things we were able to take because they were consecrated unto the Lord. Remember, this is the Lord's victory. This is not Joshua's victory. This is not the children of Israel's victory. This is God's victory. Read.
They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the priests shouted when the priests blew the trumpets. And it came to pass, when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city.
So it happened how God said it was going to happen. He said, y'all walk around one time, do it for 6 days. 7th day, march 7 times around it. Yeah, blow the trumpets, shout, the wall's going to fall down flat. How much faith do you got to have to believe that that's going to happen? This is an impenetrable city. This is an impenetrable city. How much faith do you imagine brothers going around, what's it, Area 51? I'm trying to think of the most secure place. I don't know what the most secure place is in America, but around Area 51 or some classified place, and think that we're going to get entry by doing something like this. Or we're going to take it by doing. Some of us feel like that. Some brothers, they don't really see themselves getting the kingdom. That's a real thing. Some of us don't really see ourselves becoming victorious through faith in the Lord. But we're reading here, like we read earlier, the things that we read were written for our learning. So the faith that it took for these men to march around the city and think that it's going to fall when they shout, and it actually happened. Man, Telly, put yourself there. Read.
And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and ass with the edge of the sword.
So everything died. Read.
But Joshua had said unto the two men that had spied out the country, Go into the harlot's house, and bring out thence the woman, and all that she hath, as ye swear unto her. And the young men that were spies went in, and brought out Rahab, and her father, and her mother, and her brethren, and all that she had. And they brought out all her kindred.
Right, so Rahab was spared. Rahab and her family were spared. Read.
And left them without the camp of Israel. And they burnt the city with fire, and all that was therein. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of brass and of iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord.
So, again, they followed the orders of the Most High God. They followed the orders of the Lord. Right? These were the only spoils they was able to take. The city was supposed to be utterly destroyed. Nothing survived. Read.
And Joshua saved Rahab the harlot alive, and her father's household,
Read.
and all that she had. And she dwelleth in Israel even unto this day, because she hid the messengers which Joshua sent to spy out Jericho. And Joshua adjured them at the time, saying, Cursed be the man before the Lord that rises up and buildeth this city Jericho. He shall lay the foundation thereof in his firstborn, and in his youngest son shall he set up the gates of it.
So he said, Cursed be the man before the Lord. Should he ever try to build on top of Jericho? The Lord brought this thing down. Don't even fix your feet to try to rebuild this. This was destroyed by God. Read.
So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame was noised throughout all the country.
So the Lord was with Joshua. That is how he got his victory. Through the Lord. Through God. Through faith. Let's move on. Let's get Judges. Let's get Judges. And we're going to read chapter 7. Start at verse 1.
The book of Judges, chapter 7 and verse 1. Then Jerubbaal, who is Gideon, and all the people that were with him, rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them, by the hill of Morah in the valley.
Right. So what is this? This is Gideon and his army going to war against the Midianites. All right. Again, another battle. But let's see how much faith plays a part in victory. Read.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, The people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands.
Stop. It says, the people with thee are too many for me to get the Midianites into your hand. Don't that sound backwards? Right? This is God saying you got too many people with you, Gideon. Wouldn't more people equate to an easier victory? Naturally, that's what you would think, right? But God says, you got too many people with you for me to give the Midianites into your hand. Read.
Lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, Mine own hand hath saved me.
That's the problem. Because the Most High God did not want us to think that the victory was ours and we got it because we was mightier and more than they. So God said, you got to shave this army down. You got too many people. Give me Job chapter 33, because this is what he's talking about. Lest the people say that the victory was because of their own hands. Job chapter 33 and read verse 15.
The book of Job, chapter
15,
33 and verse 15. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men,
Read.
and slumberings upon the bed, then he opened the ears of men and sealeth their instruction.
So the instruction of men is sealed upon the bed, right? When you sleep. It's in the subconscious. You're not conscious, right? You can't. When you sleep, you're not saying in your mind, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take that." Right? God said that's when He seals your instruction. Read verse 17. This is the point.
That He may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man.
Because the Most High God has to withdraw our pride from us. If we did everything that we said we was going to do, and we felt like everything that we accomplished was because of our own will, we would depart from God. What would we need God for? Think about that. What would you need God for if everything you said you was going to do, you did it? Everything you said you was going to accomplish, you accomplished. Everything you said you was going to be, you became. You wouldn't even have room to think about God. You'd be thinking about self. So God has to put our instruction in our mind when we are not conscious of it. Didn't none of us, when we was children, say, you know what? I'm going to be an Israelite and I'm going to teach the gospel and I'm going to wake up the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. I want to. None of us did that. All of us were called. Something happened. We was like, dang, this Bible really all I got. And then we took it and ran with it and became what we are now and still progressing in the spirit and in faith. Right? But God said that He has to withdraw pride from man. What is that? Give me Sirach chapter 10. Sirach chapter 10. Verse 12.
The book of Sirach, chapter 10 and verse 12. The beginning of pride is when one departed from God.
The beginning of pride is when you depart from God. That's why you got to hide it from. You're not going to get no victory through the Lord with pride on you. He had to take that away from. He said, Gideon, you got too many people. Y'all going to win this. And then you're going to think it's because of your own skill. You're going to think it's because of your own might. So he had to shave it down. Go back. Judges.
The book of Judges, chapter 7 and verse 3. Now therefore go to, proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 22,000, and there remained 10,000.
So 22,000 was afraid. He said, all right, we don't need those that are afraid. Y'all go back home. So there was 10,000 remaining of the 22. This is 32,000. So of the 32,000, 22 left and 10 remained. Read.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many.
God said, you still got too many people. Read.
Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for thee there.
I want you to really pay attention to what's being said. What is Gideon doing? Gideon isn't doing anything that the Lord isn't commanding him. He said, shave down the numbers. Gideon said, hey, if you're afraid, go home. 22,000 left. 10 remain. God said, you got too many people. Tell them to come down to the water. I'm going to try them there. Guess what Gideon's going to do? Take them down to the water so God can try them. Read.
And it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee. And the same shall go with thee. And of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go.
Who's choosing the army here? God is choosing the army. God is choosing the army. He said, if I say they can go, they're going to go. If I say they ain't going, they're not going. Read.
So he brought down the people unto the water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, every one that lappeth of the water with his tongue, as a dog lappeth, him shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, every one that bows down his knees to drink. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down to their knees to drink water.
Right. So what is this showing you? Some of the people, some of the men who were bowing down to take drink were not aware. Right. So these men were identified by lapping up the water with their head down into the river, right? Into the water. But the men who lapped up with their hand did what? They had their head on the swivel. They was watchful. These are the type of spirits that the Most High God was looking for, right? So it shaved down Gideon's army. Read.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand.
Read that part again.
And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you.
He said, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you. Not the 300 men because they aware and they have this situational awareness and they keep their head on a swivel and they war ready. Not because of any of that. It's because I want to save you with these men. This is all of the Lord. Read.
And deliver the Midianites into thine hand, and let all the other people go, every man unto his place.
Read.
So the people took victuals in their hand, and their trumpets, and sent all the rest of Israel, every man unto his tent, and retained those 300 men. And the host of Midian was beneath him in the valley. And it came to pass that same night that the Lord said unto him, arise, get thee down unto the host, for I have delivered it unto thine hand.
God, again, he's saying, I have delivered it into thy hand. It's not by our own might that we do these things. Gideon had to have faith in the Lord that if I take away all of these men, surely I'm going to be destroyed. He had to have faith to remove that thought and to trust in the Lord. Okay, God got me. He said, I'm going to be able to, we're going to succeed with 300 men. That's what we're going to do. That's faith. Never has the Most High God been removed from our victories. Read.
Verse 10. But if thou fear to go down, and go thou with Phurah thy servant down to the host, and thou shalt hear what they say, and afterwards thine hand shall be strengthened to go down to the host.
So afterward thine hand shall be strengthened to go down. So this is God saying that our strength is coming from him. The skill when you I'm telling you, put yourself there. When you are in battle and something tell you duck, and you duck and you escape a blade narrowly, however you want to picture it. That's of the Lord. That's the Lord giving you strength in that situation. Read.
Then went he down with Phurah his servant unto the outside of the armed men that were in the host. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along in the valley, like grasshoppers for the multitude. And their camels were without number, as the sand by the seaside for multitude.
Look at how many people and warriors there were. It says, as the sand by the sea for a multitude. Read.
And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came unto a tent, and smote it, that it fell, and overturned it, that the tent lay along. And his fellow servant answered and said, this is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. For into his hand have God delivered Midian and all the hosts.
For unto his hand hath God delivered Midian. Why? He was obedient. He did what God asked him to do. He did what he told him to do. He kept God in it. He not trusting his own skill, his own devices, his own men. He trusted in the Lord. Read.
And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned unto the host of Israel and said, arise.
Hold on. Read that part again. Read verse 15 again.
Verse 15. And it was so, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel.
So he worshiped the Most High God after hearing the dream and the interpretation. He worshiped the Lord because he knew that victory was coming. That is the exaction of his faith. His faith, him having that faith that the Most High God would deliver the enemies into his hand, was solidified by that. So he went and worshiped. Continuing to give God honor. Continuing to give the Most High praise. Read.
And said, Arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of Midian. And he divided the 300 men into 3 companies. And he put a trumpet in every man's hand.
That's 100 men per company. Read.
With empty pitchers and lamps within the pitchers. And he said unto them, Look on me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be that as I do, so shall ye do. When I blow with a trumpet, I and all that are with me, then blow ye trumpets also on every side of the camp, and say, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. So Gideon.
The sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Read.
So Gideon and the 100 men that were with him came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch. And they had but newly set the watch. And they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, The sword of the Lord and of Gideon.
So they did what was beckoned of them. That's the same thing we read in Joshua. Read.
And they stood every man in his place round about the camp. And all the host ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the trumpets. And the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Bethsheba and Zaratha, and to the border of Ebed-Meholah, unto Tabbath. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali, and out of Asher, and out of Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. And Gideon sent messengers throughout all Mount Ephraim, saying, Come down against the Midianites, and take before them the waters unto Belbarba and Jordan. Then all the men of Ephraim gathered themselves together, and took the waters unto Belbarba and Jordan. And they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb, and they slew Oreb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock. Oreb and Zeb they slew at the winepress of Zeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon on the other side of Jordan.
Victory. Victory. The Lord's victory. It said the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Right? So, again, we're reading that faith has never not played a part in overcoming our enemies in battle and in war. All right? The children of the man of war. Let's move on to Judges chapter. We're going to read. We're going to skip. Let's go back. Let's go to Judges 4. I'm going to skip 1 for time's sake. Judges 4. Do I want the whole thing? Yeah, start at verse 1.
The book of Judges, chapter 4, and verse 1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord, when Ehud was dead.
So after Ehud, which was a former judge who brought righteousness into the land of Israel, Israel was in the midst of wickedness again. Right? It's like every 40 years we was in some BS. Okay? Read.
And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in the Harosheth of the Gentiles.
So we was taken into captivity, just like we read in Deuteronomy 28, just like we are in captivity now. Our sins brought us into captivity. Our departure from the Lord caused us to fall. Read.
And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, for he had 900 chariots of iron. In 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of Israel.
So he was waxing Israel, man. They was crying unto the Lord because of the oppression. Read.
And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time.
Read.
And she dwelt under the palm tree of Deborah, between Ramah and Bethel and Mount Ephraim. And the children of Israel came up to her for judgment.
Right. So Deborah was one of the sisters that had righteous bones in her body. Israel was wicked, but Deborah was righteous. She maintained her righteousness. But let's just so we don't get a stupid Negro. Deborah was not ruling anything. Jump over to verse 5 or chapter 5 and verse 9.
The book of Judges, chapter 5 and verse 9. My heart is toward the governors of Israel.
Deborah's heart was toward the governors of Israel, which means what? That she yielded to the men. So let's not get simple. We don't want no feminists jumping out the walls like the Kool-Aid man. Okay? Deborah's heart was toward the governors of Israel. Read. That offered themselves.
Oh, my heart is toward the governors of Israel that offer themselves willingly among the people. Bless ye the Lord.
Right. So her heart was toward the righteous leaders of Israel. So let's keep that in mind when we read in this. Go back over.
The book of Judges, chapter 4 and verse 6. And she sent and called Barak, the son of Abinoam, out of Kadesh Naphtali, and said unto him, Hath not the Lord God of Israel commanded, saying, Go and draw towards Mount Tabor, and take with thee 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and the children of Zebulun, and I will draw out thee to the river of Kishon, Sisera, and the captain of Jabin's army.
So what is this? Another victory that is to be gotten by the hand of the Lord. Right? She is encouraging brothers. She's encouraging men to go and do the bidding of God. Read.
With his chariots and his multitude, and I will deliver him into thine hand. And Barak said unto her, If thou wilt go with me, then I will go. But if thou wilt not go with me, then I will not go. And she said, I will surely go with thee. Notwithstanding, the journey that thou takest shall not be for thine honor. For the Lord shall sell Sisera into the hand of a woman.
See that? Still, it shall not be for your own honor. The Lord is going to do this thing. That's what we reading. Read.
And Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. And Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh.
All right, jump down. Jump down to 13.
Verse 13. And Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people that were with him from Harosheth of the Gentiles unto the river of Kishon. And Deborah said unto Barak, Up, for this is the day in which the Lord hath delivered Sisera into thine hand.
This is the day that the Lord have delivered him into thine hand. That the Lord have delivered them into thine hand. Read.
Is not the Lord gone out before thee? So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. And the Lord discomfited Sisera.
Discomfited means overthrow. All right, for those that's taking notes. The Lord overthrew him. Read.
And all his chariots and all his hosts with the edge of the sword before Barak. So that Sisera lighted off his chariot.
So his army got waxed. Read.
And fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued after the chariots and after the host unto Harosheth of the Gentiles. And all the hosts of Sisera fell upon the edge of the sword.
Read.
And there was not a man left.
Who the only person that was left was Sisera. Read. Jabin, excuse me, that we read at the beginning.
Howbeit Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. For there was peace between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. And Jael went out to meet Sisera, and said unto him, Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not. And when he had turned in unto her into the tent, she covered him with a mantle. And he said unto her, Give me, I pray thee, a little water to drink, for I am thirsty. And she opened a bottle of milk, and gave him drink, and covered him. Again he said unto her, Stand in the door of the tent, and it shall be, when any man doth come and inquire of thee, and say, Is there any man here? Thou shalt say, No. Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent, and took a hammer in her hand, and went softly unto him, and smote the nail into his temples, and fastened it to the ground. For he was fast asleep and weary, so he died.
So she killed him. Read.
And behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him, and said unto him, Come, and I will show thee the man whom thou seekest. And when he came into her tent, behold, Sisera lay dead, and the nail was in his temples. So God subdued on that day Jabin, the king of Canaan, before the children of Israel.
God subdued Jabin, the king of Canaan, that day by the hand of a sister. So our sisters, like we read in Judges 5 and 9, with their hearts being toward the governors of Israel who give themselves willingly to the people who serve the Lord, they could be vessels of victory for the Lord too. That's what we just read. All right. For time's sake, 1 Samuel 17. We're going to have to jump through this one. I wanted to read the whole thing, but we're going to have to jump through it.
Start at verse 1.
Yeah.
1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 1. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shokel, which belongeth to Judah, and pitched between Shokel and Azekah, in Ephes-dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines.
So there was a battle set up against the Philistines. More war. Read.
And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them.
Verse 4.
Verse 4. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span.
So Goliath was a champion of Gath. Goliath the Philistine was a champion of Gath. You know what a champion is? A champion don't lose. Think about this. He's a champion who is, it says 6 cubits, which is roughly 9 feet, a little over 9 feet, right? And he's undefeated. Read on.
And he had a helmet of brass upon his head.
Let's read about his war apparel. To is quantify the right word, to see how big this dude was. All right, read.
And he had a helmet of brass upon his head.
Uh-huh.
And he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass.
The weight was 5,000 shekels of brass. That is 200 pounds. 200 pounds of chainmail. Read.
And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders.
Read.
And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spear head weighed 600 shekels of iron. 600
shekels of iron is 15 pounds. Some brothers can't get in the gym and lift 15 pounds. Goliath's spearhead was 15 pounds. This dude was huge. Read.
And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me.
He said, he calling them out. He said, choose you a man, let him come fight me. Read.
If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. So
this is what Goliath is putting out there. He says, somebody come, I'll call anybody. Y'all ever seen Spider-Man? Remember when Macho Man Randy Savage was in the ring? I'm talking about the first Spider-Man. Some of y'all young brothers and sisters might not know about that. Y'all know Miles Morales. But Macho Man Randy Savage was a top dog in the ring. He said, you ain't going nowhere. That's Goliath. That's what he's doing. Read.
And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard the words of the Philistines, they were dismayed and greatly afraid.
So they was terrified. They like, this dude is huge. He's going to kill us. Read.
Now David was a son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. And he had 8 sons. And the man went among for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle were Eliab the firstborn, and the next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was youngest. David was the youngest, and the three eldest followed Saul.
So David was the youngest of his brothers. Read.
But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren a ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren.
Jump to verse 20. Jump to 20.
Verse 20. And David rose up early in the morning, and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army.
So David was like, I'm about to go. He said, I'm about to go. Read.
And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion of the Philistines of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid.
So they ran. They was like, nah, this dude is scary. Right? And David saw this. Read.
And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is the uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?
So this is the point. David is so confident in the power of God. He said, so who's going to get the riches? Because remember, whoever killed Goliath, not only would the Philistines serve them, but they would get all of these things from the king. They was going to get the riches. They was going to get his daughter. And so David was like, all right, so who we going to give it to? Because David knew that the Most High God was on their side. But the other brothers did not see that. They didn't see the victory. They was afraid. They was thinking carnally. Their faith was weak. Right? Read.
And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So it shall be done to the man that killeth him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and said, Why camest thou down hither?
He said, what you doing down here, man? He was mad at him. Read.
And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness?
He said, wasn't you supposed to be going and keeping sheep? Read.
I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightst see the battle.
So he was like, you just trying to come see what happened, not realizing that David was the only one with the faith to fight against Goliath. Read.
And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause?
He said, what I do? I ain't do nothing. Read.
And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner.
So he said, he asked everybody else what I do. And they said the same thing. Read.
And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine.
Right. Read.
And Saul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth.
So Saul told David, man, you a young dude. You're not going to be able to go and fight against him. Right? But David was the one that was willing. Read.
And he, a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth.
So David boasted a little bit. He said, Goliath been fighting since he was a youth. You young, you're not going to be able to win this battle. David said, man, I delivered a sheep out of a lion's mouth. Read it again.
And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth.
Read.
And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him.
He said, I killed that lion.
and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear.
He said, I killed the lion and a bear in my youth. He
And
said,
then-
Goliath ain't no different. He an uncircumcised Philistine. He not a servant of the Lord. Read.
Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God.
He said, I'm going to kill Goliath just like I killed that lion and that bear and delivered the sheep, the children of Israel. Y'all got to think about this spiritually and think about it literally. Imagine yourself there. Read.
David said, moreover, the Lord hath delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear. He will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine.
You see that? Read that part again, man.
David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion,
The Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion,
out of the paw of the bear,
out of the paw of the bear,
he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine.
he going to deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. That's faith. That's faith. Read.
And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor.
Because Saul saw through that thing spiritually. He said, you know what? The Lord be with you. And he armed him. So go do your thing. Read.
And he put a helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor. And he essayed to go, but he had not proved it.
So he said, I ain't never used this sword. Remember, you know how brothers get a Bible, it's brand new. They don't know how to use it. It take them 35 seconds to find a scripture. This is the literal sense, right? David had never used the sword. So what did he do? Read.
And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag.
So I want y'all to really imagine this. David took off the things that would protect him carnally. The chainmail, the sword, the helmet. And what did he do? He went with just a staff, a sling, and 5 small stones, smooth stones. He went with very little physically, but he had a lot going spiritually. He had the Most High God on his side. He believed that. He had faith in the Lord. Read.
Which he had, even in a script, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near the Philistine. And the Philistine came and drew near unto David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. And the Philistine looked about and saw David and disdained him. For he was but a youth and ruddy and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou shalt comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods.
So the Philistine, Goliath, he felt some type of way. He was like, y'all gonna send me this little dude? He said, how y'all disrespectful? Read.
And the Philistine said to David, come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air.
He said, I'm gonna kill you, little dude. Read.
And to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts.
He said, you coming with all of these carnal weapons, the spear, a sword, all of that. He said, but I'm coming to you with the name of the Lord. Read.
The God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied.
The God of the armies of Israel, whom you've defied. Read.
This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand.
He said, I'm going to kill you.
And I
Think about that. Goliath, this big, large dude wearing 200 pounds of armor, talking about, I'm going to kill you. And you say, nah, I'm going to kill you. How much faith does that require? How much faith does that require? Read.
This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the beasts of the field, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel.
He said, I'm going to cut your head off. He said, I'm going to take your head. I don't know how many of y'all watch anime, right? People be saying it's childish. Some of it be good. There's a show called Hunter x Hunter. And one of the characters he vowed to kill one of his enemy. It was the Goliath. He vowed to kill the Goliath of this show. He brought a shovel to the fight because he had that much faith that he was going to succeed. That's what David did right here. He brought a shovel prepared to bury him for his victory. After his victory. That's what David said. He said, I'm going to take your head. That's faith. Read.
And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear. Mm-hmm. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands.
He said, the battle ain't with swords and spears. He said, the battle is God's, and he going to give you to us. Y'all going to serve us. Read.
And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Mm-hmm. And David put his hand in his bag.
Read.
And took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in the forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling.
That was a one-shot kill. He brought 5 stones. He only used 1. Read.
So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and smote the Philistine, and slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran, and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword.
Oh my God. This is grimy. He ain't had a sword. Remember, he took it off. He said, I ain't never used it before. He took off the sword. But he vowed that he was going to cut off Goliath's head. So he took Goliath's sword. Read.
And drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled.
Their champion died that day. By who? The hand of the Lord. God delivered, like David said, the Lord's going to deliver you unto us. This battle belongs to the Lord. You uncircumcised. You don't have no fear. You defy our God. God is going to kill you in his name for us. That's faith. David had faith and it showed. All right, one more count. That thing was cold, boy. David cold. First Maccabees. Gotta get this. First Maccabees, chapter 4. No, chapter 2. I want chapter 2 and read. Start at verse 64.
The book of First Maccabees, chapter 2, and verse 64. Mm-hmm. Wherefore, ye my sons, be valiant, and show yourselves men in the behalf of the law, for by it ye shall obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Simon is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always, and he shall be a father unto you.
Right, so this is Mattathias' sons, right? He said, my sons, be valiant and show yourselves men in behalf of the law. What does that mean? Serve God first. He said that first. He said, be servants of the Lord. Read from where you at.
As for Judas Maccabeus, he hath been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people.
So you got 2 different types of brothers here, but both valuable in war, right? Where was I at? Simon the counselor, and then you had Judas Maccabeus the warrior. Read.
Let him be your captain and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the law, and avenge ye the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of the law.
Read.
So he blessed them, and was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year. And his sons buried him in the sepulchres of his father at Modin. And all of Israel made great lamentation for him.
Right, so warriors were made this day. Warriors who were going to serve the Lord was made this day. Okay, now let's read chapter 3. Start at verse Start at verse 1.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 3 and verse 1. Then his son, Judas, called Maccabeus, rose up in his stead, and all his brethren helped him, and so did all they that held with his father. And they fought with cheerfulness the battle of Israel.
Read.
So he gat his people great honor, and put on a breastplate as a giant, and girt his warlike harness about him. And he made battles, protecting the hosts with his sword. And his axe he was like a lion, and like a lion's whelp, roaring for his prey. For he pursued the wicked, and sought them out, and burnt up those that vexed the people. Wherefore the wicked shrunk for fear of him, and all the workers of iniquity were troubled, because salvation prospered in his hand.
So Judas is making a name for himself as a warrior of the Lord, fighting for righteousness, right? Dismantling evil and wickedness. Read.
He grieved also many kings that made Jacob glad with his axe, and his memorial is blessed forever. Moreover, he went through the cities of Judah, destroying the ungodly out of them, and turning away the wrath from Israel, so that he was renowned unto the utmost part of the earth, and he received unto him such as were ready to perish.
Read.
Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together, and a great host of the Samaria to fight against Israel. Which thing when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him. Many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Wherefore Judas took their spoils, and Apollonius' sword also, and therewith he fought with all his life long. Now when Saron, a prince of the army of Syria, heard that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and company of faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom.
So you got one man that say, you know what? I'm going to take down this Judas. Read.
For I will go and fight with Judas and with them that are with him, who despiseth the king's commandment. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him,
Read.
and to avenge the children of Israel. And when he came near, going up to Beth Horon, Judah went forth to meet him with a small company.
With a small company. Remember, that's been a motif that we've been reading throughout all of these accounts, is that it ain't about numbers. It ain't never been about numbers. It's about the level of faith of the people that's involved. Read.
Who, when they saw the host coming to meet him, said unto Judas, how shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day?
See, you had a couple of brothers in there that was a little weary. Faith was a little bit small. But watch what Judas say. Read.
Unto whom Judas answered, it is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of few.
He said it ain't a hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of few. He said it don't take a lot. It don't take a whole bunch of people. Remember, it took David a sling and one stone to kill a champion. It took 300 valiant men with Gideon. Read.
And with the God of heaven, it is all one, to deliver with a great multitude or a small company.
He said with God, it's all the same thing, whether it's a whole lot of people or very few. The battle is the Lord's. That's the point. It's not our battle. Judas knew this. It's not our battle. It's God's. Read.
For the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength cometh from heaven.
That's the point. The victory is not, it says the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of a host, but the strength comes from heaven. The strength comes from the Lord. The victory comes from the Lord. It always has been. It always will. All right. I think that's all I want there, but I do want to get one account real quick. Jump to chapter 5. We're going to start at verse 55. I want to get an account where we don't put our faith in the Lord and we do what we want to do. Read.
The book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 5, verse 55.
Uh-huh.
Now what time as Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Gilead, and Simon his brother in Galilee before Ptolemais.
Read.
Joseph the son of Zacharias and Azarias, captains of the garrisons, heard of the valiant acts and warlike deeds which they had done. Wherefore they said, let us also get us a name and go fight against the heathen that are round about us.
He said, let us go get us a name and fight against the heathen that are round about us. What does that show you? That they did not put the Lord first. The battle wasn't the Lord's to them. It was theirs. Let us go get us a name. Let us go get us a victory. Not realizing that the victories that Judas and his brethren saw was not theirs. They belonged to God. That strength came from heaven. Where do you think their strength coming from? Nowhere. And it's going to show. Read.
So when they had given charge against the garrison that was with them, they went toward Jemnea. Then came Goliath and his men out of the city to fight against them. And so it was that Joseph and Azarias were put to flight and pursued unto the borders of Judea. And they were slain that day of the people of Israel, about 2,000 men.
So they got themselves and 2,000 men put to death because they wanted to some vain glory. They wanted to take victory to themselves and not give honor to the Lord. Read.
And thus was there a great overthrow amongst the children of Israel, because they were not obedient unto Judas and his brethren, but thought to do some valiant act. That's the point. They thought to do some valiant act. And it resulted in the death of 2,000 men and their lives being lost. Okay? So I pray that the class was edifying for you all. Victory belongs to God. Right? So no matter what we got coming that may not be in our favor, we got to remember that we keep the Lord first and we show faith and fervor, that we're going to be all right. All right? With that, I say shalom, you all. Most High in Christ bless.
What is a nation?
Nation is family. Nation is community. Nation is men leading by example. Nation is women's support. Nation is children with role models. Nation is unity. Nation is you.